Greetings, fellow gorehounds, and welcome back to another Blood Splattered vlog. I'm the Horror Guru.
And I'm Count Jackula.
And we just got done watching Freaks of Nature, the second zombie comedy from last year that we heard really negative things about, so it took us a while to finally watch it. And, what the fuck, people? Like, this is actually pretty good.
I wouldn't say it was as good as Scout's Guide.
No, Scout's Guide was a way better constructed movie overall.
Yeah.
This movie's got some problems, but it is not...
It's not the worst thing ever.
No.
Like, everyone's talking about these movies like they were just, like, cancer.
Like, they were atrocious. Like, they were the worst thing ever put to celluloid. And this is a really solid, fun, enjoyable movie, just with a lot of flaws.
Yeah.
Before we get into spoilers, like, the number one problem I have with this movie is that it is all over the place pacing-wise. Like, some scenes feel like they're dragging on a little too long, probably because they're ad-lib scenes, so there's a whole lot of
there's a lot of ad-libbing in this movie.
Yeah, there's a lot of comedians in this movie, like Bob Odenkirk, like Patton Oswalt, like, one half of Key and Peele, whose name now escapes me.
Yeah, I always get them mixed up because we're team for so long.
Yeah, absolutely. Joan Cusack.
Joan Cusack's in this, yeah.
You know, Pat Healy's in it briefly. Like, there's a whole lot of great...
Dennis Leary,
yeah. A whole lot of great comedic voices in this movie, and as a result, some scenes drag on a little too long, because they're obviously just having fun and just keep going. But I feel like they could have tightened some of those scenes down just a little bit, because they drag on a little too long, even though they have really funny bits.
Yeah.
But then there are scenes in this movie which are the more action-oriented scenes that I feel like they're rushed through, and I feel like a better balance needs to be struck between those two scenes.
The first half of the movie is really, really rickety and bumpy, and it feels like it's going to fall apart at any minute.
Yes.
But once we actually get to, like, the second half of the story...
Things start to come together.
It all comes together in the end, which I was really surprised at, because when we're at the halfway point, I was like, oh god, this movie's gonna fall apart at any moment. Like, this is just dragging.
I know exactly what you're thinking.
Yeah, it's dragging. It's just gonna be a piece of shit. And they pulled it together in the end, which I was really surprised at.
Absolutely. It's really funny. I pretty much like all the main characters, even though everyone in this movie is kind of an asshole to one another.
Yeah. This is definitely... Well, when people, are talking about, everyone in the movie is an asshole, that feels a lot closer to this movie than Scout's Guide.
Exactly. That is way closer to this one. But it's also kind of the point of this one.
Yeah, it is.
Where in the end, they all kind of come together, so it's kind of like, they kind of have to get over each other's differences.
Yeah.
You know, so it's kind of caked into the construction of this movie, but it doesn't. I don't understand why people said that about Scout's Guide, because this movie's way more like that.
Yeah.
It's really funny. It's really fun. A whole lot of stuff they set up all comes back. I guess we should probably get into spoilers, because...
Yeah, we might as well, because, once you get over what the basic premise is, which is it is a town with zombies, vampires, and humans that gets invaded by aliens, and that's the setup.
That's essentially the setup of the movie. It's a monster mash, but basically a monster mash set in a high school setting, because it's basically a teen drama with monsters, with some action sequences in between.
Yeah, and there are a lot of it's references to the way a lot of these monster movies have been done in the 90s and up till today.
Well, and the 80s. There was a whole lot of, Teen Wolf shit kind of going on.
I wasn't sure I wanted to bring that up yet, but yeah.
There's a little bit of, my best friend is a vampire going on here.
There was that, yes.
My boyfriend's back. Those kind of movies are kind of... Obviously, they're kind of taking the premise of those, like Teen Wolf, My Best Friend's a Vampire, My Boyfriend's Back, those kind of monster mash comedies, and, expanding them into one giant movie.
Yeah.
That also incorporates, War of the Worlds.
Yeah. Which when this is kind of where the movie starts to run into a little bit of trouble, because there is a lot of inconsistency in the way, particularly the vampires are, because they're pulling from so many different sources. Like, zombies are pretty basic. Like, all right, what do they shamble or not? Okay, they shamble. Do they eat brains? Okay, they shamble and eat brains. Yep. Bam. Now we know what the zombie is.
They don't even care too much for normal flesh. They'll eat it, but they're really more about the brains.
Yeah, really more about brains. Whereas the vampires, basically, the defining characteristic of the vampire is simply bloodsucker. And they've taken from a variety of different sources to create the vampires of this, but it's not consistent across all vampires. Like, some of the vampires are way more 30 Days of Night. Some of them are way more Twilight. And some of them are way more like Fright Night. And
different vampire designs and things like that going on. Which are obviously all homaging to all those things, but it does make it feel a little inconsistent throughout.
It gets a little messy because, like, you're not sure how this is all gonna kind of shake down, and it's not like they're like known subcultures of vampire that are all fighting, because they're all one group that's fighting other people.
Absolutely, and there may be internal justifications for it, but as an audience member, you're kind of like, wait, why does that vampire look like this? Why does that one look like this? Why is there these different types of vampires? Is it like humans, where we have like black humans, Asian humans, or whatever? Is that it?
Exactly.
But you also have black and Asian like vampires, so I don't know.
And it becomes like this metaphor for, like, you know, class and racial tension.
Absolutely. Which is a part of the movie I kind of really liked, is that part of the movie kind of comes together very well, even though, like, the speed at which the town falls apart is, like, insane.
It's really fast.
It's an example of one of the scenes that feels like they sped through after having a bunch of scenes that kind of slowed down. It's weird. I really like this movie, but its pacing is all over the place. Anyway, I do recommend this movie if you like zombie comedies, if you like monster mash movies. This is a pretty fun one. Its pacing's all over the place. There are going to be points where you're like, is this going to come together? It does. And some of the characters are pretty douchey and pretty unlikable, but they come together in the end. Like,
it's definitely part of the movie.
It coalesces into, like, the point of the movie. It's not super gory, but it is nice and bloody. It doesn't skip on it like Final Girls or something like that. I guess we're gonna get to the spoilers now. So here are the spoilers. Alrighty then, so the basic premise of this movie is you have these three main characters. One of them is this girl who is dating this vampire and is thinking about giving it up to him, like have sex with him. The other one is this geeky, kind of nerdy, kind of emo kid whose parents are all about jock life, and whose brother is like the best jock in the fucking school. Who is kind of shit on at home, shit on at the school. He's bullied. His parents just think he's worthless and that he should just be like his brother and all that stuff. Who starts befriending this zombie girl. There is the main character who is, for all intents and purposes, supposed to be like the most normal kid. He's not quite a jock, he's not quite a nerd, he's not quite anything. He's kind of in between those two things, and it turns out that's actually part of the story. That he's kind of in the transition phase between one and the other. And he's all about this girl that he wants to get laid with, but the girl's not really that interested in him. She's just kind of using him for his weed, because he's selling the weed, because he has the weed, because his parents are hippies, and they're kind of the perfect parents. They're just a little awkward, but
his dad is played by Bob Odenkirk. His mom is Joan Cusack.
And they're fantastic. Like, they're sitting there going, like, I know that they're a little embarrassing, but like, that is like they're kind of really good parents.
Yeah,
they're not bad parents at all. They're just a little embarrassing. That is all. And if that's the worst you face with your parents, then you kind of got it good.
Like, yeah, which actually is something that comes up in the movie.
Yeah, it actually does. It actually is part of the movie. So it's one of the. At first, you're like, "Oh, boo-hoo, kid," but then like another character literally says that to him. Yeah. So you're like, "Okay."
Yeah, your life doesn't suck at all. What the hell are you giving us a hard
You
time
have
for?
shitty tasting women, though.
Yeah,
like I get it. Like she's hot. She's got nice tits. She's got a nice ass, but she is a bitch, and she is using you. Come on, guy. But once again, that is part of what's going on in the movie.
It's part of the tale.
You know, it's not me. It's not me judging the writing here. That is actually the story going on. It's basically about these three characters. One of them ends up becoming a vampire from her one night stand with the other vampire, who basically tricks her into thinking that if he bites her, he'll be with her for all eternity because he truly loves her.
Yeah.
And she thought she was just gonna have sex with him, but he wants to make a bigger commitment, and she goes through with it. But then he becomes the asshole boyfriend who just
doesn't call back.
He just wanted a piece. That's all. He doesn't care.
Just wanted to suck her blood, and that was it.
Yeah. In this case, it suck her blood, not have sex with her. He has another girl he has sex with, which is part of the plot, which is kind of great. And through this character, you have this whole like metaphor about like slut shaming in high school and stuff like that.
Yeah,
basically going through this vampirism.
That's a big theme.
Yeah. And the nerdy emo kid like befriends the zombie chick and basically kind of realizes that the zombie chick doesn't really have to worry about anything, doesn't really feel anything because she's a zombie. Like her brain doesn't have to be all there. So unlike him, who's constantly worrying about his grades, who's constantly worrying about like getting into a good school, who's constantly worrying about like what's going to happen when he goes home. If he was a zombie like her, he would not have to worry about any of that.
Yeah, he
stuff.
wouldn't have to care.
You know, it's basically the equivalent of fucking like someone just getting high all the time.
Yeah.
You know, and so he lets her bite him. Actually, he kind of tricks her into biting him so that he could become one with her, and he becomes a zombie and just starts to just enjoy the bliss of not having anything going on up here anymore. The other kid is trying to hook up with the other chick, but the other chick, once again, is not breaking off a piece. Tells him that I'm saving it. I'm saving it. Like
tricks him into believing she's saving herself,
which she's not, because she's been fucking the vampire dude, which is the other girl that the vampire dude fucks. And then aliens arrive. Aliens arrive in the town. They big fucking like Independence Day spaceship in the fucking sky. The entire town goes, "What the fuck is going on?" And they immediately split into factions. And they all assume that the aliens have something to do with one of the factions, that the vampires in on the alien thing, that the humans are in on it, that the zombies are in on it. And the zombies, they don't really like split for that reason. They just kind of like, hey, like our brain supplies haven't arrived.
Yeah, because apparently the town like just gives the zombies.
Yeah, because
the brains of the animals from the slaughterhouse.
The entire vampire subplot is basically a big metaphor for slut shaming, but the zombie subplot is a metaphor for essentially like immigrants, like
immigrants or white trash. How you look at
immigrants
it.
And white
lower class people.
Basically lower class, like the working class, like the people that actually do manual labor is essentially what they're a metaphor for. And in fact, there's even a character played by Denis Leary who runs the town factory that supplies the town's riblets, which is what they're known for, these riblets. And he's basically like forced the zombies into manual labor for him, like practically slaves, because they're zombies and they don't care.
Yeah, you don't have to pay them. They don't give a shit. You know?
So they're basically a metaphor for lower class citizens in America. The aliens arrive, and the three factions just start destroying one another. Like, this happens like that. Like, they're immediately...
This was one of the problems with the basic of the movie, because that happens. The aliens land, and the town starts killing each other in a matter of, like, 3 minutes.
Yeah, and it's one of those, like, it's funny that it happens that fast, but it does feel off that it happens that fast.
Yeah, it does.
So it's like, one of those...
It happened too quickly to feel natural and not fast enough to feel like a joke.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's kind of in this weird nebulous thing. And that's what we're talking about when we're talking about pacing things. It's like literally within 3 minutes, aliens arrive and there's already like, and the three factions are already like murdering each other. Just death and destruction. Like, we're talking like chainsaws to the face. Like, we're not fucking around here. Like, guys are getting fucking their guts pulled out by the zombies. Like, this is not...
It happens really quick. They get super violent super quickly. But it was weird because it wasn't like the light comes down and one of them goes, "This is your fault."
Yeah.
And immediately...
Which would have been a funny joke.
Yeah.
You know, there's a little bit more of a build up to it. And so it kind of feels like, oh man, like, this movie, like, I wonder if this movie was just like, it almost feels like this movie was like the second pass on like an edit they did, and they needed like one or two more passes. But that happens, and the vampire chick like tries to meet up with vampire dude, finds out vampire dude just kind of just is like, hey,
just using her.
Using her. It's just like, I don't fucking care about you. You're basically a walking soda pop machine to me. Like, just, you know, you have nice veins. That's all I really cared about. And she's obviously really fucking devastated. He throws her into her car. Because he's a fucking dick. He's also the bully that was bullying the emo kid. So it all kind of comes together. She's walking off. She runs into the main dude who's escaping the vampires and zombies that attacked his neighborhood. With the chick that he was trying to sleep with, who is high out of her mind, has no idea what the fuck is going on. Realizes that the chick that he's with is the chick that the vampire dude was actually sleeping with.
Yeah.
Behind her back, and then goes after her, and they all run into the house that the zombie horde happens to be in, that is being led by the emo zombie kid. And that's when our three kind of main characters kind of collide. Yeah. And these stories kind of finally come together. And up until that point, you're kind of cutting between these three stories, like, and it almost feels like a little too much.
Well, yeah, it feels like a little too much. Plus, the movie opens up in the middle of the action and then flashes back.
Yeah, it does one of those teen movie things.
Yeah, which, like, you got why they were trying to go for a certain thing. The problem is it kind of didn't work.
Yeah.
Like, I felt like, no. There's nothing so awesome. There's not so awesome a payoff to this thing that we couldn't have just told this story front to back.
Or something that's misleading. Like there wasn't anything misleading enough in that opening to make you go like, oh, what the fuck's going on? When you come back, you're like, oh, that's what's going on.
Yeah. They just added details that if we had just done the movie straightforward, we would have gotten anyway.
Yeah. Which I didn't like that opening.
Yeah. Either. Plus, it almost opened in a flashback.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, not a flashback, but a voiceover, which that I was like, oh shit, no, please don't do this the entire movie. Mm-hmm. But they don't.
No.
Like, it's like, oh, hi, this is me, and this is this girl, freeze frame, and I'm like, if this is the whole movie, I'm gonna...
Well, it's more like Zombieland than anything.
Yeah, but in Zombieland, it worked way better.
Yeah, it's much better voiceover in Zombieland. Absolutely. So like these three stories like collide, and that's when the movie started to really come together for me, is when these characters were actually together. There was a lot of really great moments leading up to that point. Like, there's this really funny scene with the dude from Key and Peele like basically telling the emo kid that he's failing him on his paper despite the paper being a masterpiece because he fucking hates life, and he's got to prove to this kid that life isn't fair, and he's got to tear him down because this guy's one of those he's a vampire, but he's like 2 steps away from like walking into the school with a gun and just killing everybody.
Yeah.
Which is a really funny scene. It's probably one of my favorite scenes in the movie, but it also is one of the scenes that goes on a little too long.
It does. It does. You're like, dude, we've been doing this for a while. Isn't there like
you spend like a good 5 minutes in that scene, but you spend 3 minutes on like the actual apocalypse happening.
Yeah,
which is one of the weird like I didn't understand that pacing decision.
Yeah. It strikes me as this is probably a movie that had a lot of production problems.
Oh, it might have. It might definitely. Like, it might even. Like, it kind of feels like it was released before it was really finished.
During the whole like fucking town destroying each other's scene, there's like, wait, it feels like there are a lot of sound effects that are not.
Yeah, like sound effects.
Like especially when like a dude attacks someone with a chainsaw and there's no chainsaw sound.
Yeah.
Like that was like, what the fuck?
Yeah, it was a little weird. You know what it kind of reminded me of? It kind of reminded me a little bit of Knights of Badassdom, where which is a movie that has a lot of really good moments and still kind of works, but it's not the cut the director of that movie intended. It was obviously kind of butchered in the editing room because it was taken away from him, and they created this whole
definition
rushed
of a movie butchered in editing. Yeah,
like this movie feels like it was rushed, kind of like that cut was rushed. I don't know if it was taken away or anything. I don't think so, but it feels that kind of rushed.
Yeah, it's got all the same problems that the release of Knights of Badassdom has.
Absolutely, just weird pacing issues. It feels like there might be a scene or two missing, but like the characters you still like, you still want to see them succeed, and the overall story still kind of comes together. But you do feel like this could have been an even better movie. You know?
Well, it could have it could have felt like a movie that wasn't cut to butchered to shit.
Yeah.
You know, like that was the thing that was great about Scout's Guide, which is that felt like that was a smooth ride.
A very smooth, complete movie, which is why when it comes to the two zombie comedies from last year, Scout's Guide is way above it.
Yeah.
It is way above it. But this movie is not completely worthless.
No, not at all.
It is worth watching. It has really funny moments. I was laughing my ass off multiple times. There are points where you're like, this joke is going on a little too long, but once again, that speaks to the pacing issues we're talking about.
Yeah. And obviously, like something we said in the beginning, like obviously a lot of this movie was kind of ad-libbed.
Yeah.
You know,
most definitely. And like the metaphors all kind of work, but it does kind of feel like there's almost too many going on at once.
Yeah, there's a lot going on, and it felt like there's needed to be some plot points that should have been dropped. Like, for example, like as much as I liked the vampire teacher, narratively speaking, he adds nothing to the story.
That's one of the tragic parts about him, is that you could cut him out from the movie and just have like the kid got an F.
Yeah.
And it would still be the same movie, same story, and it might even be a smoother movie. Which is tragic because it's one of the funniest bits, but it's one of those sometimes you gotta cut the funny bits to make the movie flow a little better.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a really good point. And that would have spent a little more time developing the main three characters' stories.
Yes.
You know, because as it stands, it's weird. Like they all felt a little rushed. Like
yeah. Whereas I feel bad going back comparing it to Scout's Guide. But
we just watched Scout's Guides.
Yeah,
this makes sense.
So like, unlike Scout's Guide, where all the reveals and all the developments are very smooth, every punchline has a setup. Sometimes what looks like a punchline is actually a setup in and of itself. There's a running joke, you know, and everything is meticulously well constructed to
This is more scattershot.
Yeah. Zombie Scout's Guide is meticulously constructed to look effortless, whereas this one, is way more shotgun, way more scattershot, and you can tell in every aspect of the movie.
Absolutely. And I would argue even more so than, say, like some of the Seth Rogen movies.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Like This Is the End, like The Night Before, or stuff like Superbad. Like those all are obviously really ad-libbed movies, but they all felt like they were edited well. Yes. Like they cut out stuff that was unnecessary. Like they made sure that no matter what, everything felt smooth and went from beat to beat. And it felt like a movie despite all the ad-libbing and all the funny jokes that the actors brought to the table.
Yeah.
This movie felt like it fell a little too in love with the ad-libbing part.
Yeah.
Like it needed to like there's a Patton Oswalt bit where they run into Patton Oswalt and he's in a basement. He's basically like, I knew the aliens were gonna come, or I knew the vampires were gonna attack, and they're like, it's not vampires, it's aliens. He's like, did they listen to music? Did anyone try playing music to them? And like it's a funny bit where he's like referencing like Spielberg movies and things like that, but like that's another scene where it feels like it's going on a little too long, which is tragic because you're like, I do love seeing Patton and I do know he dies in a couple seconds, but I feel like you could have trimmed a couple seconds off of this. And made it just a little bit more smooth.
Or giving him, like, a whole character to have.
Oh, yeah, or even just not kill him and give him more to do. But, like if you're going to kill him right away, then that was just a little too much time spent on him.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And the other thing I will say that kind of did bug me with this movie is because so much of the movie feels like it is ad-libbed, there's also, like, it feels like there's a little too much exposition to fill holes.
Yes.
Like, there's a little too much expositional dialogue going on that is obviously just there to fill holes that probably developed as they were writing it. Like, it's...
Yeah. Like, the whole backstory between the human guy and the vampire girl, whoa, did that feel like that's just there because we need something that connects these two?
Yeah, absolutely. Whereas I would have been just fine if you just had them not really know each other and just kind of learn to know each other over the course of the movie.
Yeah. Like another thing that came up, and then this gets really obvious. And this is what I meant by, like, they really obviously hadn't decided what vampires they were going for. Earlier in the movie, we see the vampires walking around broad daylight, and so you're like, okay, so these vampires don't burn up in the sun. Like, maybe it's Twilight rules, whatever.
Yeah.
And so you just kind of roll with it. But then they do a thing where the girl burns up in the sun.
And you're really confused at first.
Yeah.
Like, wait, I thought the vampires could come out in the sun.
Yeah, but then you remember that they did this joke where they're out in the middle of the day and they're like, well, if the vampires don't have anything to hide, then where are they? And you're like, well, that would work if these vampires couldn't walk out in the sun.
Yeah, and then they, like, retcon it by having her, like, show up and find, like, she pulls
vampire sunblock,
which she finds later on, and that felt like a really tacked on explanation.
It was. There's another point in the movie. Now, this is another point where it's like the movie is not very consistent. One was the clothing.
Mm-hmm.
Because in the beginning they're like, oh, well, they can't see organic matter, which makes no sense.
Yeah.
That made absolutely no sense. And it makes no sense when you get down to why the aliens are there in the first place.
Which is organic matter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a big problem.
Yeah, which is an actual weird plot hole in the movie. Not to mention the fact that they're wearing those clothes that supposedly the aliens can't see, the organic cotton, when they go into the basement and the alien sees them.
Yeah. And you're just like, wait, that doesn't make any sense with what you said.
Like we're saying, this movie is a complete mess. But it's not worthless.
Yeah, no, it's not worthless because once they actually get back to the school.
Yeah.
Then the movie starts coming together.
Oh, absolutely. I like that whole school scene. Like, like when they start having sex, and the whole I did like the funny bit where like the run-on joke that the zombie has a bigger dick than the other guy. Like, that's a really funny bit, even though the whole premise for why they have to take their clothes off is really weird and convoluted.
Yeah, really weird, convoluted, and they go back on it a couple times,
Absolutely.
And you're like, oh god. But once they stop doing that shit and just go about the business of the movie,
yes,
that second half, it all starts coming together because they find out that the aliens, like when the aliens attack people, they dematerialize.
Yeah,
and so they're assuming they're just vaporized, but it turns out no,
they're teleporting.
They're teleported somewhere. And they're like, well, why? And the zombie's like, I don't know. Like, we just teleport.
Yeah.
You know.
Because one of them gets teleported, but, they kill the alien before he arrives.
Before it finishes transporting him.
Yeah.
And he ends
Which is one of those scenes that feels like, which is another scene that is explained in exposition that I felt like could have been better if they actually shown him just popping up somewhere.
Yes.
Personally, I feel like that would have been a little bit better, but...
Yeah. So it turns out that what is happening is everyone's being transported to, the local Costco.
Essentially.
Yeah, essentially. And they're divided according to their species. So the humans are in one pile, zombies are in another, vampires are in a third.
Mm-hmm.
And they're being kept in this electronic cage.
Mm-hmm.
Now, here's where the writing actually got good.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Whereas his dad, the main character's dad, Bob Odenkirk, is there. He's smoking weed because now that it's been revealed that he's discovered his son with weed, he feels like he doesn't have to hide it anymore.
Yeah.
And he goes he touches the thing and lights his joint on it. He's like, call it a firewall, man.
Yeah. The divider, laser shield in between them. It's like, I call it a firewall, man. And he lights his weed on it.
Yeah.
And here's the funny thing. They set up earlier in the movie that one of the things, that when the nerdy kid and the main character, who used to be friends, the main character used to be a nerd. What happened to him is that he got a growth spurt, started playing sports, and started hanging out with the jocks.
Yeah, abandons his old friend.
Yes, and so his old friend kind of gets abandoned in the interim, which is what we're talking about when we say that everyone is kind of a douchebag in this movie, but it's kind of the point.
Yeah,
because they're supposed to come together in the end. He's supposed to reconnect with his friend, which works actually a little bit better than most of the other relationships in the movie.
Yeah,
and they established that when they were nerds, one of the things they used to do is they used to play Minecraft and was it DDoS?
DDoS.
DOS attack.
Yeah, DOS attacks.
Basically,
which is when you overload the firewall so you can get in on the command line. So what they do is they realize if they all run against the wall at once,
they can
overloads the wall,
which they just establishes the firewall.
Yeah, which they establishes the firewall, and I was like, that writing was actually really good, right?
Basically, the DDoS attack that they're talking about is what LulzSec did to the PlayStation Network back when. If anyone remembers when the PlayStation was hacked,
denial of service attack.
Yeah. There you go. Bam. So, they do that, and that frees them all, and then they're like, okay, so we gotta get this... Okay, so it turns out the reason the aliens are there is because they want this organic matter, this compound that is in the riblets that the town is known for.
Yeah. That
they establish earlier in the movie in an argument, between the nerdy kid and his dad, that the nerdy kid is allergic to it because it's this very specific. It's got this specific
chemical in it.
Yes, which he established. You know where that chemical, what the chemical is. It's the same shit on Saturn, which is your first clue that it's probably gonna have something to do with the aliens.
Yeah.
And so the aliens are coming. They're coming for this compound. You don't quite know what they're coming for the compound.
Yeah,
but they want the compound, and so everyone bands together to give them the compound. They go up and they have to confront Denis Leary, who is the town rich guy who's just you guys never really liked me.
Yeah.
You fuckheads. Why should I let you in? Why should I let... He's got a shotgun or whatever. And they're like, yeah, we didn't let you... We never liked you because you're an asshole. But we're all assholes.
Yeah.
We're all assholes. And you know what? We should be in this together. We should be... And then they get together and they open it up and they let the aliens in. And the aliens... And they open up a tank of the fucking chemical. And the aliens just walk up to it. They open up and they just reveal themselves to be these little tad things, and then they
aliens.
They jump into the compound. They turn into this giant blob thing, and then they form into this higher being, voiced by Werner Herzog. And we actually checked in the credits. It's Werner Herzog himself, not a sound-alike, and it is fucking glorious.
Yeah, because he goes we came to your planet to ask you for essentially a stick of butter, and you could not kill yourselves fast enough. We had to separate you for your own safety.
And it's basically a take on stuff The Day the Earth Stood Still, or any of those things where the aliens coming in are not actually out to destroy us, but our desire to destroy each other causes them to turn on us.
to just treat us like
God. Though I will say another movie recently that actually did this particular plot a bit better was probably At World's End.
At World's End did it way better, yeah.
Did it way better. Even came to a similar conclusion.
Yeah, because by the time the alien is done with its speech, the vampire girl goes, "Fuck you! You asshole!
You came here, you scared the shit out of us, and now you're trying to lecture us like self-righteous dickheads? Like, fuck you!
Yeah.
And I'm like, you know what? They're not wrong. Fuck that. Like,
yeah, and so the entire town turns against the alien.
And the alien starts attacking them, and then they realize that some of the other compound that's supposed to, I guess, seal the compound into the riblets, when put on the alien, because they're made of the same material, like, shrinks them into this weird fucking
melts
blob creature. Meanwhile, okay, we have this other, we're talking about the main plot here. There's so many subplots here we have not covered.
Yeah.
Not the least of which being that the main character has an argument with his parents earlier in the movie, when they find weed. And it's not really an argument so much as the parents being like, we understand, like, hey, we smoke the weed, we do it, it's okay, it's whatever. And he's like embarrassed that his parents are like so cool with it and stuff like that. It's like, hey, stop, it's okay or whatever. And like they have this offhanded remark about how like I just want you to know that like us men in this clan, like you know, we mature a little slow, but like don't worry, it'll happen, and when it happens, it'll be big. And like the mom's like, yeah, it's a little scary when it happened to your dad, but like it was big. It was like, and like, so you think like obviously like it's a bait and switch. You think talking about a penis.
Yeah, but what they're actually talking about is that he's actually a werewolf.
Yes, which I was.
This is where Teen Wolf comes in.
Which I was so fucking glad that happened, because I was like, he better be a werewolf, otherwise that scene went on too long.
Yes. Yeah.
He better be a werewolf, otherwise that entire exchange was pointless. Like, you know, so he turns out to be a werewolf. A vampire douchebag attacks vampire girl. He fights vampire douchebag, kills vampire douchebag. He gets vampire girl.
Yeah.
You know, they fall in love. It's all nice. Alien goes off into the spaceship. And here's another subplot we didn't mention. Like one of the things that happened in the past to the nerdy kid was that he actually tried to be a jock like his friend and his brother, and was actually playing baseball with them. And it was a big game. The ball was about to come. He was about to catch it, and his brother knocked him out of the way and caught it for him. And so his brother got all the glory while he was just looking for his glasses in the fucking dirt.
Yeah.
And so at the end of the movie, like, the alien drops down this little bomb in the shape of a fucking baseball. He fucking catches it in this glorious moment, and then tosses it to his friend, because the main character is the pitcher.
Team pitcher.
And he catches it, and over the course of the movie, the main character has been established as he always chokes when he pitches, because he always just overthinks it, and as a result he ends up either missing or hitting, even though when the pressure is not on, he's the best pitcher that they've ever seen. And he finally makes the ball into the spaceship fucking explodes. And the day is saved. And that is essentially the movie. There's a whole lot of mini plot points and stuff that go on, but like, the thing is, the plot is not really the thing that works the most in this movie.
Yeah.
It's a really funny comedy with a mess of a plot. Like,
yeah. There's a lot of funny shit that happens.
It's like if Detention was actually funny.
That's actually, yeah.
Like, was not a big fan of Detention for Detention fans out there, but Detention was another movie that was a little all over the place, also set in a high school, had way too much going on, pacing was all fucking crazy.
Yeah, well, that movie, for lack of a better way of putting it, I felt like most of what was happening in Detention was deliberate.
Yeah.
You know, whereas I do not feel like, for all the problems that I have with Detention, I do not feel like it was a movie that was simply slapped together.
No.
You know, I feel like it was meticulously made. I just didn't think it worked.
Absolutely.
You know, whereas this movie is a lot more entertaining, a lot funnier, but is a lot more poorly
like
put together.
Everybody in the end. Like,
yeah. Everyone kind of does this.
Like, even Denis Leary, you kind of like. Yeah. Kind of like in the end, even though he is the rich fucking boss hog douchebag in the fucking movie.
Yeah.
You know, like Bob Odenkirk is awesome. Like, Vampire Teacher is pretty funny. Like, you know, like the main characters, you're kind of rooting for them to get together in the end. You know, nerdy kid gets zombie girl, and you're like, yeah, nerdy kid gets zombie girl. Oh yeah, and his parents get turned into zombies because of the whole
because of the apocalypse. And there's there's a really great reunion scene with him and his brother. Is hilarious. Dad, that one is great.
It was a little reminiscent of some scenes from Warm Bodies, but I was okay with it.
Well, Except that it went farther than Warm Bodies did.
It did. Just like, how long is this going to go?
Well, that was a joke that went on forever, but it kept getting funnier.
That one worked. Yeah. And they hug at the end. You're like, oh, man.
Yeah.
There's also a lot of great one-off jokes in this movie. Just like, oh, Mrs. Carnicle, like, your son's a zombie. Let's stop pretending he's a real doctor.
Yeah.
The joke was really good. It's just a one-off joke. Like, what really makes this movie work is that it's a lot of funny people coming together and obviously having a blast making the movie.
Yeah.
So that
the shoot was obviously a lot of fun.
So despite the fact that the movie feels like it's held together by fucking duct tape, it's still a fun experience. It's just you just kind of feel like with a little bit more polish, the movie and maybe even the script, if it was a problem on a scriptural level, could have been even better.
Yeah. This feels like a slightly above average movie that felt like if it had that like finer touch to it, like that final pass or what, just whatever it needed could have actually have been legitimately great.
Absolutely. It could have been Scout's Guide good.
Yeah, it could have at least been that good.
Freaks of Nature, I like it a lot. It's really fun, but it's a mess. So if you go in watching it, just know it's a mess and just enjoy the ride for what it is. So there you go. Peace out.